This documentary sheds light on the masterminds and plans of the Bilderberg Group. Who are the rulers and participants from each country who meet behind closed doors?
From
18th to 21st of May, it was that time again. The annual Bilderberg Conference met. Representatives from high finance, the aristocracy, the secret services, politics and the military, business, administration and the media met behind closed doors. With the start of the conference, the lists were published of the participants of this year's conference. Noteworthy is the participation of high office holders of the EU. The Vice President of the European Commission, Josep Borrell, and the President of the EU Parliament, Roberta Metsola, as well as the EU Commissioner for Economy, Paolo Gentiloni, were new this year. Interesting is also the renewed participation of the chairman of the pharmaceutical company Pfizer, Albert Bourla. From the German side, members of the Bundestag, Anton Hofreiter and Norbert Röttgen, were invited, as well as the head of the Federal Chancellery, Wolfgang Schmidt. New from Switzerland was Federal Councillor Ignacio Casas, once Swiss President 2022, currently head of the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs FDFA, and from Austria, the current Foreign Minister Alexander Schallenberg. Schallenberg was for many years chairman of the Board of Directors of Union Bank of Switzerland, now UBS. Another guest at the conference was the mayor of the French port city of Le Havre, Edouard Philippe. It is interesting that the magazine Handelsblatt wrote about him in 2022. He is considered a possible successor to Macron. In light of this suggestion, the sudden career leap of participants after attending a Bilderberg conference is very striking.
Angela Merkel attended the Bilderberg meeting in May 2005 and became German Chancellor in November 2005. Jens Spahn, a rather unknown state secretary in the Ministry of Finance, attended the Bilderberg conference in 2017 and surprisingly became German Minister of Health in 2018. Emmanuel Macron, current president of France, was a Bilderberg meeting participant in 2014 and entered his current role as of 2017. Ursula von der Leyen, former German defense minister, attended Bilderberg conferences in 2015, 2016, 2018 and 2019 and became president of the European Commission in 2019.
The Bilderberg Conference as a career springboard. Claudia von Wellhoff, German sociologist and political scientist, wrote the following about the Bilderberg Conference. Here, you are in the forecourt of power, real power. Everyone who has come into this power's focus is being invited. And invited as what? As a coming representative of this power. Obviously, the powerful could not be powerful if it weren't for this kind of hinge class that, on orders from above, sets the tone on what is important and in what direction things have to go. By hinge class, she means the group of people who form the link between the powerful and the people. These people who implement the decisions of the Bilderberg Club from their position or are elevated to a position to act in accordance with the decision-making. How did the Bilderbergers come into being? How are they structured? How do they function and what are their goals? KLA TV has done some research following up on these questions in this documentary.
First, the founding.
The Bilderberg Group was founded at the initiative of David Rockefeller. David Rockefeller was president and major shareholder of Chase Manhattan, once the largest US bank. Now it's called JP Morgan Chase. Under his leadership, Chase Manhattan Bank became a central pillar of the international financial system. Throughout his life, Rockefeller pursued the plan of one world government led by high finance. He wrote in his memoirs, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal that works against the best interests of the United States. They designate me and my family as internationalists and conspirators who collaborate with others all around the world in order to build up a more integrated global political and economical structure. One world, you could say. If these are the accusations, then I plead guilty, and I'm proud of it." David Rockefeller, in order to achieve his goal, initiated various organizations or so-called think tanks, whose foresight influences international politics. In addition to the Bilderberg Group, he, together with Henry Kissinger and global strategist Zbigniew Brzezinski, also founded the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission dates back to the Bilderberg meeting in 1972, where David Rockefeller proposed its creation. Many of the Bilderberg members also joined the commission. The strategic plan to create the Bilderberg Club originated at the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR for short. The CFR is a private U.S. think tank founded in 1921. Which pulls the strings as a kind of shadow government in the United States. Henry Kissinger recalls the genesis of the Bilderberg Club.
We met 60 years ago as part of a study group at the Council on Foreign Relations. Shortly afterward, he encouraged a discussion group, which later was developed into what is now known as the Bilderberg Group.
David Rockefeller was a director of the Council on Foreign Relations until 1985, and then he served as its honorary chairman until his death. Henry Kissinger was present at the birth of the Bilderberg Club. He has always enjoyed a strong position at Bilderberg conferences. For many years, he shaped U.S. foreign policy as a political advisor. From 1969 to 1975, he was National Security Advisor under Richard Nixon, and from 1973 to 1977, U.S. Secretary of State under Nixon and Gerald Ford. Kissinger was one of David Rockefeller's closest allies until the latter's death. He is a longtime member of the CFR and served on its board of directors from 1977 to 1981. On the occasion of his 100th birthday, KLA-TV aired the documentary 100 Years Henry Kissinger, Global Strategist and War Criminal. Other individuals were also involved in the founding of the Bilderberg Group. Joseph Hieronym Ratinger, a Polish Jesuit and 33-degree Freemason, was entrusted by David Rockefeller with the organization of the Bilderberg meeting because of his numerous connections to elite circles. Ratinger put together the original group of the Bilderberg Club. He served as secretary of the Bilderberg Club until his death in 1960. Joseph Esri Johnson was president of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, an American think tank founded by Andrew Carnegie from 1950 to 1971. He was director of the CFR from 1950 to 1974. Johnson served as the first American secretary of the Bilderberg Conference in 1954. David Dean Rusk was Secretary of State of the United States from 1961 to 1969 under Presidents John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson. He was a senior government official in the 1940s and early 1950s. Dean Rusk served as a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation from 1950 to 1961. In 1952, he became president of that foundation. Charles Douglas Jackson served as special assistant to the president under Dwight Eisenhower from 1953. He was the liaison between the newly formed CIA and the Pentagon. In 1953 and 1954, Jackson was involved in the formation of the Bilderberg Group and ensured American participation. Jackson was a member of the CFR. Bernhard, Prince of the Netherlands and Prince of Lippe-Biesterfeld, was descended from the higher nobility. He married Princess Juliana, heir to the Dutch throne. Prince Bernhard maintained lively relations with the European royal houses and high-ranking industrialists. That is why he was involved in the organization of the Bilderberg Group. Prince Bernhard was predestined to give the royal face of the Bilderberg Club to the outside. He was chairman of the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group until 1976. The steering committee is the decision-making body of the Bilderberg Club after the advisory board. The first meeting of the Bilderberg Group took took place on May 29, 1954. At the invitation of Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, influential representatives from Europe and the United States met in secret at the Hotel de Bilderberg near Arnhem in the Netherlands. At the first Bilderberg conference, the founding members set the following goal, among others.
How do you bring about and bring together an aristocracy in Europe and in the United States, united by common purposes? And how do you achieve their agreement on matters of politics, economics and strategy so that together they can rule the world? Second, the structure.
For a long time, the pinnacle of the Bilderberg Group was the advisory group, the advisory board whose members were appointed for life. This body also met between annual conferences and decided who would be put on the guest list. Up until his death in 2017, this included David Rockefeller, Giovanni Agnelli, as well as Erich Roll von Ibsen and Otto Wolff von Amerongen. Today, the Bilderberg Group is led by the so-called steering committee with about 35 people. The representatives of this committee decide who from their country will be invited to the annual Bilderberg conference. The steering committee acts as a type of shadow government in numerous countries around the world. The current chairs of the steering committee are Victor Halberstadt and Marie-José Kraves. Victor Halberstadt, a Dutch economist, is a faculty member of the World Economic Forum, as well as a member of the International Advisory Board of Goldman Sachs Group, a U.S. financial services firm. Marie-José Kraves holds the other chairmanship. She is a Canadian businesswoman and a member of the International Advisory Board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the Council on Foreign Relations. In addition, Kraves holds an honorary doctorate from Rockefeller University. For example, on the steering committee are from Germany, Paul M. Achleitner, former CEO of Deutsche Bank AG. Matthias Döpfner, chairman of the publishing house Axel Springer SE. From Austria, Gerhard Seiler, president of media company Warner Brothers, Discovery International. From Great Britain, John Soares, executive chairman of consulting firm Newbridge Advisory. From France, Henri de Castries, president of the think tank Institut Montaigne. From Italy, Marco Olvera, co-founder of ZeroNet, managing director of the company Tree Energy Solutions. From Spain, Ana P. Botín, executive group chairman of Banco Santander. From Portugal, José Manuel Barroso, chairman of Goldman Sachs International LLC, former president of the European Commission. From Turkey, Erner M. Koç, chairman of industrial conglomerate Koch Holding AS. From Poland, Radoslav Sikorski, member of the European Parliament, senior fellow at Harvard University, former Polish foreign minister. From Norway, Børge Brende, president of the World Economic Forum. From Sweden, Marcus Wallenberg, chairman of Skandinaviska and Skilda Banken AB. From the US, Nadia Shadlow, senior fellow at the Hudson Institute think tank. Eric E. Schmidt, former chief executive and chairman of technology company Google LLC. From Canada, Mark J. Carney, chairman of asset management firm Brookfield Asset Management. The next level is formed by the participants of the annual conferences. A Bilderberg conference usually lasts for 3 days, with around 130 people taking part. Before a conference, discussion papers are distributed which participants use to prepare for the conference. When going through the participants, two groups in particular stand out, namely high finance and the European aristocracy. The nobility is not very visible in world politics. Prince Bernhard and his daughter Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, as well as Queen Sophia of Spain, attended Bilderberg conferences, although they did not hold formal positions as did Prince Bernhard. Each person who attended a Bilderberg conference remains associated with the Bilderberg group from there on after. After each conference, each participant, as well as all previous participants, receives minutes of the meeting. In addition, since 1963, they receive an explanatory document belonging to it, that is the agenda of the Bilderberg Club. Below, you will find a document with the participants of the Bilderberg conferences from 1954 to 2023, showing who is part of the Bilderberg Group and who implements its agenda in your country.
Third, facts surrounding the Bilderberg Group.
The Bilderberg Group has the enormous security measures for the annual conference paid for by the taxpayers of the host country. At the 2015 Bilderberg meeting in Austria, a contingent of 2,100 police officers was on hand. The participants and members of the host country's steering committee, on the other hand, only pay for travel and conference expenses.
During the Bilderberg conference, the Chatham House rule has always applied to participants. It states it may be reported in general terms, but never quoted by name. The official website of the Bilderberg meetings proclaims, "Thanks to the private nature of the meeting, participants attend as individuals, not in an official capacity, and therefore are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions." The monthly magazine Compact wrote, "The real scandal of the Bilderberg system lies in the fact that elected members of parliament, ministers and sometimes even heads of government or top representatives of international organizations are colluding with representatives of the financial oligarchy and industry captains under exclusion of the public, without democratic legitimacy and declared as private, possibly making far-reaching decisions without having to account for them. Everything that has to do with political relevant decision can never be private," says German sociologist Hans-Jürgen Krysmanski.
But how does the issuing of orders work at the Bilderberg Group? How do they ensure that the results of conference are implemented in the respective organizations, companies and countries? Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands explained it as follows.
When representatives of Western leadership leave a Bilderberg meeting, they carry the consensus of the group with them. Even Henry Kissinger admits, but the consensus that emerges forms the basis on which policy is made worldwide. And from the moment the Bilderberg conference ends, almost by accident, the consensus reached seems to be wholeheartedly touted by the respected press, while at the same time it becomes the general policy of international governing interests in seemingly disparate camps, says journalist Daniel Esterlin.
Coverage of the Bilderberg Club is severely restricted. The venue and time of the meeting is being announced via the official homepage bilderbergmeetings.org only shortly before or during the meeting. The meeting agenda points of discussion as well as the lists of participants can also be viewed there during or after the conference. Thanks to investigative journalists who uncovered the existence of the Bilderberg Group, the Bilderberg Club had to concede these concessions. For decades, the existence of the Bilderberg Club as well as their meetings were kept secret, especially by the mainstream press. David Rockefeller thanked his allies for this secrecy at the 1991 Bilderberg Conference with these words.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time magazine and other major publications whose editors-in-chief attended our meetings and honored their pledge of discretion for nearly 40 years. It would never have been possible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been in the public eye during those years. But the world is now more mature and ready to move toward world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is certainly preferable to the national sovereignty of the last few centuries. Fourth, the goals of the Bilderberg Group.
As already mentioned, the Bilderberg Group's activities are aimed at creating a one-world government. The one-world government includes, among other things, the following, some of which have already been introduced and implemented.
First, the gradual reduction of national sovereignties in favor of one single world government, installing the United Nations as the world government under the control of high finance. Second, one international economic union. the entire world economy to be divided into 3 trading blocks for better management: the European Union, the American Union, and the Asia-Pacific Union. Third, one unified legal system. The International Court of Justice should become the sole and highest legal authority in the world. Fourth, the creation of one world army. NATO will become the UN World Army, replacing all national armies. Fifth, one single socialist welfare state. The Bilderberg Group has a vision of a socialist welfare state in which the obedient are rewarded and the maladjusted are targeted. China's social credit system shows what it could be like. There will no longer be a middle class, only rulers and ruled. A zero-growth society is envisioned, with no prosperity or progress for the people. The end of prosperity goes hand in hand with the end of industrialization and the phasing out of the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Electric power will then only be available for computers and the service sector, said journalist Estulin. Fifth, events sparked by the Bilderberg Group.
Some authors, such as Daniel Estulin, Andreas von Reti, or Gerhard Wisniewski, who have written about the Bilderberg Group, have pointed out various events in recent world history that they trace directly back to the group. Here's some examples.
The establishment of the European Union began with the Bilderberg Group. British historian Richard Aldrich states that the Treaty of Rome had its origins in discussions at the Bilderberg Group the year before. Former European Commission Vice President and longtime Bilderberg Club President Etienne Davignon admitted to the online newspaper EU Observer that the Bilderberg Club helped to create the euro in the 1990s. The Yugoslav Wars of 1991 to 2001. The Bilderberg Group discussed the creation of a flashpoint in Yugoslavia in order to break up Yugoslavia in this way and then redraw its borders. Reconstruction was to be financed at the expense of taxpayers in the West. Attack against Iraq was postponed. Leaked reports from the Bilderberg Conference of 2002 indicate that the attack against Iraq was postponed from summer-fall 2002 to March 2003. The European participants of the Bilderberg Conference demanded the personal presence of US Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, who subsequently changed his plans and attended the conference in Chantilly, France. In the end, the attack was postponed, although the press had announced it earlier.
The Bilderberg Group agenda aims to establish NATO as a world army. Therefore, the presence of NATO commanders-in-chief and secretaries-general at Bilderberg meetings is no surprise. For example, NATO's supreme commander and concurrent commander of all US forces in Europe, Philip Mark Breedlove, attended the Bilderberg conference in 2014. This was after the protests on the Maidan in Kiev had taken place in late 2013 and early 2014. In light of the situation in the Ukraine at the time and the tense situation between NATO and Russia, the 2014 Bilderberg meeting therefore had an important role to play. This year's 69th meeting of the Bilderberg Group in Lisbon in May 2023 will play an equally important role. The agenda includes NATO, Russia, and the Ukraine. A look at the list of participants reveals US General and NATO Commander-in-Chief Christopher Cavoli was also present, as was NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba also attended. If you look at the annual agenda and lists of participants, you will see that the Bilderberg Group discusses all world-defining events and sets the agenda therein. Given the facts listed in this program, we can speak of the Bilderberg Group as a secret shadow government. It is considered a major instrument of the New World Order. Through artificially induced crises such as the wars just mentioned, the world population is to be led step by step into the New World Order. David Rockefeller summarized it in 1994 before the United Nations Business Council like this.
So zusammen.
We are on the verge of a global transformation. All that we need is a right major crisis and nations will accept the new world order.
If one looks over the past decades, the elites or high finance are indeed successful in causing new crises again and again and using them afterwards for the implementation of their goals. The implementation of the New World Order has worked up to this point because the work of the Bilderberg Group remained hidden and the participants were able to implement the agenda unnoticed as a link between the population and the Bilderberg Group. In order to stop the progress of these plans and the work of the Bilderberg Group, it is therefore important that the plan's string pullers and participants come under the spotlight and into the awareness of the population. Therefore, please distribute this broadcast and the list of participants below the broadcast as widely as you can.
Wie Sie können.